Hello everyone. We meet in the name of God. God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit. God is one. You've been thinking about respect. Can you explain what it means to treat someone with respect? Sometimes it's as simple as saying thank you, because it means that we have appreciated what someone has done, and saying thank you makes them feel worthwhile. I'm going to tell you a Bible story from the Old Testament about two surprising people who respected each other. Elijah was a prophet, which means that he heard God speaking and told others what God said. Now this meant that in his country, with the people of his religion, people looked up to him, and he was quite well known, and people respected him. It hadn't rained for ages, and Elijah was starting to feel hungry and thirsty. "Don't worry," said God, "go to a town called Zarephath. I've told a widow who lives there to give you some food." Now, the widow lived on her own with her son because her husband had died, which in those days meant that she was very poor and people didn't take much notice of her. And she lived in a place where they didn't believe in Elijah's God. So you wouldn't really expect Elijah to have any time for her. But God thought she was important, and so Elijah did as God told him. Just as God had said, when Elijah arrived at the town, he saw the widow gathering sticks for a fire. "Excuse me," he said, "please could you bring me a drink of water and a piece of bread too?" "I'm sorry," replied the woman, "but I don't have any bread. All I've got is a handful of flour and a little oil in this jug. I'm picking up these sticks to make a fire, and then I'll make some bread with the flour and the oil so that my son and I can have one final meal before we die." Now, Elijah didn't think, "Oh dear, I must have got the wrong widow," or, "Well, this woman is no use to me." He knew that God cared about the woman and her son as well as him, and so he said, "Don't be afraid. Go home and bake the bread and then bring me a piece, but keep some for you and your son as well. God has promised that the flour won't be used up, nor will the oil run dry until the day that he sends rain on the land." I wonder what the woman thought about that. What do you think? The woman didn't believe in Elijah's religion, but she listened to him anyway. She returned to her house, made the bread and gave some to Elijah, and then the widow made some more bread, and then more, and then more. As Elijah had promised, the oil and the flour didn't run out until the drought and the famine were over. At the start of the story, Elijah was hungry and had an unusual message from God. The widow was worried and about to eat a last meal with her son, and the son was hungry and probably worried too. How do you think they would have felt at the end of the story? I think that Elijah had learned more about trusting God. The widow is no longer afraid and has learnt that even if other people didn't have much respect for her, the God Elijah believed in loved her and had a plan for her. And the son is no longer hungry and probably has realised that God has taken care of him and his mum. In the story, Elijah and the widow treated each other with dignity and respect. They both listened to God and listened to each other, and so they both learned something through each other. Sit quietly for a moment and think, what does it feel like when someone listens to you properly? Do you show respect to other people by listening to them like that? I'm going to end by saying a prayer. You can join in the Amen at the end if you'd like to. Dear God, thank you that you value each one of us. Please help us to treat others with respect. Help us to listen to others, even if they're very different from us. Help us to see the value in every individual person. Amen.